In 1964, the number of trucks on New Zealand roads reached 150,000, nearly all of which were British. In 1966, the Road Carriers Association commissioned this film on the trucking industry of the time.
This is Graham Poulter, long-distance transport operator, coming to the end of the first half of his run. His destination, a port. His cargo, dried milk powder. Later in the day, he'll spin his wheel back along the same track. A routine job, an ordinary job, but a vital one to this country. Every minute of the day, every day of the year, trucks and lorries, like this one threading its way through New Zealand's busiest thoroughfare, are going about their jobs. To the factory or back to the farms, for more loads or bound for the ports, carrying the wealth, the prosperity of the country on their backs. Few people realise how this land of ours is born on the wheels of the transport industry. 4/5 of all the freight that moves to and from the ports, in and out of the crowded cities with their traffic hazards, is borne by lorries or trucks sometime or other. Some 75 million tonnes a year. No, we would not survive as a trading nation, but for the ships that come for this wealth and return with its rewards. But that shipping would be helpless, useless, but for the wheels of transport to service it. Wheels depend on wheels. You can't have a car until a truck arrives at the port to uplift it and carry it away to be made up to the smart little town car or your wife's runabout. Crates and containers are the modern way of handling cargo. And big combination trucks and trailers are the modern economical way of transporting them from the ship's side to factory or warehouse, market or showroom. And quick, efficient handling by well-equipped, well-maintained, speedy and reliable trucks and vehicles saves time, which means money. Cargonized loading, as illustrated here, saves a lot of time and a lot of energy. The crates are simply pushed from the loading deck and onto the tray of the truck, running on rails. Speed of handling is everything these days. When ships are not fast enough, the big jets step in to ferry choice cuts of New Zealand meat to the world markets. The transport industry, with vehicles and men for every task, is the major pack horse. Delivered in specially designed containers to keep it chilled for hours on end, this meat is jet-bound for Papiti in French Tahiti. This expanding market today is only a trickle. Tomorrow, who knows? Transport operators, just as much as the ocean-going jetliner, are playing a major part in pathfinding new trade routes. Even the railways depend heavily on private transport operators. The end of the line does not mean the end of a job. It's just the start. Someone has to do the fetching and carrying at each end, the carrier. Express goods trains serve no purpose without a speedy road service to match. Ours is a growing nation. Nothing illustrates this more than the big cement transporters trundling daily through the streets or rumbling along the highways. Giant concrete mixers mounted on wheels, churning, mixing, all the way to the job. Load, mix and pour. That's the method today. With quality-controlled concrete arriving and being poured in a continual flow, the builders get on with the job. Delays and costs are kept down and the work goes on non-stop. But concrete needs sand. It's bulky, heavy stuff to move without the right gear. Huge sandliners like this unit moving along a city motorway make a light job carrying 38 yards of pumice sand each load, some 40 miles from Mercer to Auckland. This one firm alone carries 1,250 yards each week. moving house. Even this Herculean task becomes easier when you call on the experts. Such loads, of course, have to have the full cooperation and approval of the Transport Department. You can't go charging around the countryside with houses on your back. And like most jobs in the transport game, it takes considerable skill, rather expertise. No one wants their homes turned to kindling wood on the way. And if a special job calls for a special vehicle, the transport operators soon come up with one. No country in the world offers such a diversity of vehicles. This chip liner is designed for the timberland's task of ferrying large quantities of wood chips to the pulp mill. It's not a heavy load as loads go, but a bulky one, space-consuming and awkward to handle. The load arrives at the mill and is driven onto a rack. Away goes the power unit, leaving the semi-trailer to be clamped to the hydraulic cradle. Up she goes, slowly, steadily, until the whole load is on its way to the ever-hungry pulping plant. Approximately 190 tons of wood chips are delivered weekly to this factory for the manufacture of wallboard. New Zealand's wealth is her green grass and livestock, producing wool and meat, clothing and food. The days of humping milk cans down to the farm gate are over almost. Where milk was once collected in cans or taken by the farmer in cans to the factory, spotless milk tankers are now on the job, saving time, labour and money. It all adds up to increased productivity, more wealth for the country. The farmer today is a very motorised and mechanised fellow. His fuel arrives in bulk. No longer does he depend on the 12 and 44-gallon drums. Licensed carriers working on contract for major oil companies regularly deliver fuel for that maid of all work, the tractor. Cleanliness pays big dividends in the farming industry. On every possible occasion, stock trucks are washed down with high-pressure hoses between loads. Hygiene is essential to our export drive. On the road, great care is taken to prevent injury or suffering to livestock by making frequent stops, checking that none of the animals has fallen down. See? They even have arrows on their rumps to make sure they go in head first. Something like 45 million head of stock, mostly sheep, are transported by road each year. For most, it's a one-way trip to the freezing works. Bruised or damaged carcasses have little value on the world market, so care in transport is vital. At sales and dispersals, there are plenty of loads for the big livestock units, trucks and trailers that cost up to £12,000 to put on the road. The modern farmer needs modern service, not only on wheels, but wings also serve him. Aerial top dressing has been pioneered in New Zealand and is a must for some of the tough, inaccessible conditions found in this country. Something like 2 million tons of top dressing materials are spread across the countryside each year. A little more than half of it is dropped from the air. But the fertilizer that is used reaches the farm on wheels, taken to the suitable airstrips dotted around the high country. The plains make light work of the hilly terrain where no truck can go. Where the land is accessible, even if it is a bit bumpy, the spreader truck covers the ground in quick time, giving an even spread. Like top-dressing aircraft, the spreader truck is something specially devised for New Zealand conditions. They're expensive equipment. Some of them have moving floors of rubber to carry the load back to the spinners. Once more, the industry has produced a specialized vehicle for a specialized job. Steel, and another heavy industry. Steel, road transport serves again, taking the finished products out in a constant stream. No time is wasted as trucks arrive with empty trailers, drop them off, pick up a laden trailer, take it away and return for another load. Concrete mixers on wheels, refrigerators on wheels. These refrigerated vehicles are among the most expensive on the road. They have their own refrigerator units. Frozen vegetables and ice cream are kept in perfect condition as these vehicles run a shuttle service from processing factories to deep freeze stores and shops up to 300 miles away. Night and day, wheels are rolling, serving industry, commerce and the community. You have to be an early riser if you're one of the drivers bringing produce to the market in the morning gloom. Cabbages, potatoes, carrots, apples, pears, grapefruit, all moved from the market gardens to town. You also have to be a dab hand at reversing, with perhaps only an inch either way to spare. The bell is rung to signal the start of another day's auction. And as fast as the goods go under the hammer, they move out again to shop or store, finally to the home, in Mum's little runabout or the shop delivery van. It's a picturesque spot, Taupo. Quiet too, away from the din and noise of the cities. A place for fishing, a place for lazing, a place for reflection. But you can't have a holiday resort without a town, shops, stores, garages. And if Taupo is a town which attracts the tourist, it's also a town that the road transport industry has built. It has no railway, nor a port to serve it, so everything in Taupo was brought in by road and everything still is. It's a growing, vital community, building, expanding, growing, like this new timber mill under construction. A concrete industry making a variety of products, like these farm slaughterhouses. And numerous other local industries, like this box-making factory. All these point to the Taupo of the future. Taupo is a town leaning heavily on road transport, particularly the long-distance and local carriers. One brings the goods in, the other distributes them. Tyres for the local garage, bananas from the islands, a new fridge from the city factory, Her Majesty's mail. Anything and everything is handled by the town carriers. They clock up something like 12,000 miles a year just on local errands. The rural carrier, the lifeline of the hinterland, may clock up 25,000 miles, and some vastly more, and their workhorses are the sturdy 5- and 7-ton four-wheeler. North of Taupo is the land of bubbling mud, spouting geysers and tall timber. Like its sister tourist town, Rotorua also has thriving local industries. Timber milling is the major one. It calls for strong men, tough vehicles. Another load aboard, and it's off through the bush and along the highway again. The country is rugged, the bush tracks rough, calling for gear work all the way until the main highway is reached. Then it's smooth driving. The timber lorries are splendid examples of the transport industry's adaptability. A load of logs delivered, the jinker, that is the trailer that carries the tail end of the logs, is given a piggyback ride back to the tree-felling site. Meanwhile, the laden truck forges ahead, past the beautiful rivers and lakes that abound in this wonderful countryside, to the mill or wharfside, as here at Tauranga, to earn valuable overseas currency. An awkward load to remove? Not when you use this method. A yank at that wire and... timber! The wheels of industry depend on power, and the search for more sources of power goes on unceasingly. The Tongariro scheme, based on Turangi, is currently one of the major hydroelectric developments on hand, with huge earth-moving tractors shifting tons of earth at a time. Where would it be but for the lorries, trucks and the men who own and operate them? The owner-driver plays just as important a role as the big fleet operator. There's room for everyone, even on the big jobs such as Turangi, shifting soil, carting metal. They look as if they could carry more, but these trucks are heavily laden with river metal for the roads. And on the big construction schemes, work cannot stop for a spot of rain. It's wet and greasy underfoot, but this giant earth-moving unit makes easy meat of its task on the South Island construction site. New car owners would not take kindly to having their new models arrive with a large delivery mileage on the clock. So new cars from the assembly lines are carried between Auckland and Wellington on these king-size transporters. 7 cars or 8 minis is the usual load, and the service is a daily one. Nelson. And like Taupo, it's a centre whose whole existence depends on road transport. Nelson, being climatically suited to agriculture, has become the main apple-producing area in New Zealand. But also hops, tobacco and tomatoes find the warm, sunny conditions ideal for their growth. Up to 1.5 million cases of apples are exported annually, out of a total of over 2 million cases picked from Nelson alone, which is nearly 50% of New Zealand's total apple crop. Countries they're exported to include the United Kingdom, Western Europe, Singapore, Hong Kong, Canada, USA and Holland. The variety of apples include Cox's Orange, Delicious, and Jonathan, which crop in February, Golden Delicious, Granny Smith, which crop in March, and Sturmers, which crop in April. Safety first is an axiom of the transport industry. It has an accident-free record second to none through the diligence and skill of operators and drivers. None have a better name than the heavy transport drivers, the knights of the road, and the transport industry aims to keep it that way. If safety is the industry's proud claim, diversity is one of the big features of it. At this Nelson depot, we see quite a few various designs and shapes of trucks. Here, for instance, is a vehicle specially devised for a special job. Petrol or diesel fuel is carried in an underslung tank, leaving the upper deck for backloading, so the empty fuel tanker pays its way back to the depot by carrying goods on the tray. A fine example of the economical use of road transport. When we move house, we cannot always take the home along with us, but we can take the things that make up a home. Furniture removal is a highly specialized part of the transport industry. Your three-piece suite can travel in style, down the road, or round the corner, or from Kaitaia to the Bluff. Something like £45 million is invested in New Zealand's road transport fleet of 21,000 vehicles. The chassis and engines come from abroad. Then, in coach building plants, the miracle is worked. Whether it be a cement silo, oxygen tanker, car transporter, plane, truck or trailer, New Zealand can build it. And a fine product, one that meets all the demands, is the result. Something special like a bottom dumper that spreads road metals at different thicknesses and at varying speeds. That's no trouble, nor a truck with a built-in crane to handle difficult loads such as bricks or concrete blocks with the minimum of fuss or breakages. Transport vehicles that can do jobs like this save untold man-hours in all sorts of industries and play their part in the unending battle to keep costs down. Concrete mixers on wheels, fridges on wheels, and sugar bowls on wheels. Well, not quite, but almost. Numerous industries prefer their consignment of sugar in liquid form, saving many man-hours in handling. It's also necessary for their particular manufacturing process. A monster job? You call in a monster motor. In this case, Big George is his name. Wheels and jacks all over the place allow George to make light of most anything. And once he has the freedom of the road, again, special permission has to be sought from the transport department, he's on his way with a pilot up front, a fellow at the back for steering round the bends, and just to make sure there's no backsliding, a pusher tags along at the rear to supply a shove when it's wanted. There are something like 130,000 transport vehicles in this country. Parked nose to tail, they would stretch from Wellington to Kaitaia. There are 4,000 licensed carriers, ranging from one-man bands to big fleets. This firm, established now for over 100 years, is one of the largest in the land. The value of this lot, for instance, would leave no change out of £350,000 or thereabouts. But every one of the 25,000 people in this industry, whether a large operator or a one-truck carrier or whatever his role, a maintenance man, a clerical worker, or a driver like Graham Poulter, has his part to play. Every day, drivers like Graham clock up together 1 million miles. In fact, something like 50,000 miles while you've been watching this film, keeping this country on the move. Yes, the road transport industry is certainly playing its part in developing the economy of New Zealand.